Well, hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at the recently released ScaleTrains AC4400CW in both the Ferromex scheme and the KCS NAFTA 2000 scheme. This is a subsequent run of the AC4400CW, so we'll look at what the differences are, if there are any, and show you the details of these models from ScaleTrains starting right now. Alright, so as you can see, we have NAFTA and Ferromex here. We're going to open up the Ferromex version. Inside is a product manual, and that manual is a total of 15 pages of information going over everything from operating in DC, DCC, the function chart, as you can see there, 31 functions listed, and configuration variables and more. And we'll open up the locomotive itself and pull it out of the foam surround in what's called the blister packaging, this hard plastic. Slide that off. You'll see a little baggie with some extra wheel bearing caps in case a couple of yours pop off. They've provided 2 extras. And here's the Ferromex loco. Got the truck stabilizers here that will pull off. As you can see there, you want those off, or you might get a locomotive that tips over. Let's get a closer look at this Ferromex. Alright, here we have Ferromex, and as we zoom in, you can see one prominent feature right off the bat, and that is the anti-vandalism grills that are on both the windshields and the side windows of this cab. Obviously, you've got the Mexican flag here on the side, the cab number, and you can also see Grupo Mexico. I'm really bad at pronouncing that, but you can see the writing there on the side. AC4400CW is also another area down there you can see written right in front of the jacking pad, which is right here. As we go to the front of the locomotive, you can see that X pattern for this scheme is right there on the front of the locomotive. You've got a black and white striped snowplow with a snowplow window with the MU and accessory hoses and brake line hose there. Low mounted ditch lights below the anti-climber, MU hose plugged in both sides there. Coupler cut lever, and you've even got a cab door and cab door window there with the LED lighting on these locomotives. Satellite dome. There's a separately applied grab there, a bunch of separately applied grabs on the nose, and sand filler hatches on each side of the nose as well, along with some warning labels and such throughout the locomotive. On the side, again, the anti-vandalism grating, and you can see the dynamic brake fan grills, along with battery box doors and all the compartments and truck detail. Fuel, sight glass, emergency shut-off button. You can see all the compartments there along the side. You've got the horn and exhaust up top. And as you work your way to the side, you can see that brake chain detail, which is molded plastic detail. You can see the face of the wheels is painted a rust color for ultimate realism. ScaleTrains was the first, and I believe only company to still be doing that, or to start it, and the only one that's actually doing it still to this day. There's also a brake wheel there. You can see the see-through grating, the radiator fan housing kind of shining through there, or you can see it with the silhouette. There's a closer look at the brake detail, including the actuators that clamp down to stop the wheels. And you've got your rotating bearing cap there, which they provided extra ones as I mentioned earlier. Spare coupler knuckles on the rear, more hoses including that airline hose, rear stanchions, rear LED light, sand filler hatch, and more of the print like Ferromex and the road number there on the side. You can even see, if you look closely, some print right there. There's just so much fine detail print. You've got see-through grading on the wheels. I mean on the stairs, not the wheels. And more of the same along this side here. And I'll show you a top-down view so you can see that see-through grading a little better. More emergency shut-off and fuel sight glass detail here. More battery box doors and compartment detail, jacking pad. So there is the front. With the top down, you can see the see-through grading on the stairs. You can see the anti-skid roof there where it's got some impression so that people can walk along and not fall around the satellite dome, or dome antenna I should say. There's warning labels, the exhaust and the horn there, and the radiator fan section of the locomotive there on the rear. For those wanting a look at the bottom, not much to see. There is some underbody detail, some conduit and such, but you've got those rust-faced wheels. But other than that, bottom of the fuel tank is plain, and not much to see here other than that underbody detail, which is really nice. As you can see, there's lots of conduit and stuff running on the underside of the sill there and there. Here's the KCS NAFTA 2000 paint scheme. It was a commemorative paint scheme, I believe somewhat short-lived, but you can see a lot of the road name differences, such as the absence of those anti-vandalism grates on the windshields. The paint scheme's obviously different, and obviously ScaleTrains is going to make the road name different details, like the ditch lights are mounted above the anti-climber versus on the KCS they're below the anti-climber. A lot of the other details we've already covered are present on this model. One thing we didn't mention is the fine etched windshield. There's going to be a different antenna configuration, obviously, as you can see the dome and the ice skate antenna there. Along the side, as we zoom in, you can see that nice gray paint scheme with all of those different railroads there listed under the NAFTA railway. A real very evident see-through effect on the radiator there, where you can see that radiator fan housing, along with the brake chain detail we talked about before. The handrails, kind of getting a view of those, is they're very straight. I don't see many problems with them. You can see for yourself as you look down that way, down the walkway of the locomotive. More detail on the rear, including rear mounted ditch lights. Separately applied grabs we talked about before. But that is just a quick 360 of this version of the AC4400CW. Alright, here we have a view of the scale so you can see for yourself the weight on these. We'll just pick one. You got almost 1.5 pounds at 1.45 pounds. That's 23.2 total ounces, 658 grams, so 1 pound 7.2 ounces. So pretty hefty locomotive. We'll check coupler height on these real quick. Starting with the rear. Try to get it to focus where it belongs here. So you have the rear just below where it should be, it appears, so slightly low. And we'll check the other side here. And Looks like also slightly low there. So those are slightly low. We'll couple that so you can see that it is engaging just slightly low. Shouldn't be much of an operations problem. On the NAFTA we have the same thing, so it's lower than the KD coupler height gauge on both of these units by about, I don't know, a quarter or less of a coupler. That one seems almost dead on actually, so 3 of 4 are just slightly low. Going off the manual with this ESU LOKSound equipped locomotive, F8 usually starts these up, so looking at the manual that says start up, let's hear it. Alright, now we'll go through some other sounds. We'll start with the bell on F1. Two horn. We'll go to 3, which is coupler clink. 4 is dynamic brakes, which you probably have to have it moving. You hear the whine of the dynamic brakes there a little bit. Much more noticeable than other locomotives I've tested out. F5's DPU lights, we'll look at lighting in a separate segment. 6 stitch lights, again, we'll look at those separately. 9 is drive hold. Hitting drive hold basically allows you to separate the motor control from the throttle sounds. When you hit F9, the speed of the loco will be locked at the current speed step, so it's a little hard to show stationary, but basically if you're moving and you hit F9, it's going to lock in that speed step, and then when you move the throttle up or down, the prime mover will make that sound but not actually affect it. And I guess we can give it a try here. What I'll do is I'll be going here at just a few speed steps. So we'll pick 4. See 5 in this case. So I'll hit 9. That locks in the speed. I'm going to crank my throttle up. And you hear that prime mover respond. I'm going to crank my throttle back down to 0, but as you see, the locomotive continues to move. So that is drive hold for you. And I'll bring that locomotive back to where you can see it a little better. 11's radiator fan, 10's independent brakes, we'll skip some of those. Headlight dimmers, 12. 13's air dryer, let's see if I can get that. Looks like 14's number boards on and off. 15 disconnects motor drive if active with the isolation switch. And there's a lot more functions here. We've got 17 auto set brake set release, 18 sanding valve, 19 short air let off, 20 air compressor. So we'll hit some of these here with maybe 20. You hear the compressor fire up. And 21's handbrake. '22's cab door, which is very, very subtle. '23's engine hood door. And you've got manually notching up and notching down 26, 27, manual notch logic 28, load simulation 29, automatic brake 30, fade out sound 31. So there's a list of your functions on this locomotive. I don't remember sounding the horn, so we'll do that real quick with the NAFTA. It's all with a press of F2. There's no separate button for short horn that I see. We'll also roll right into the speed test. Let me just get that closer because this thing does move slowly. I know the indicator light's blinking down by kilometers per hour, but this is HO scale and miles per hour. That indicator light is just kind of located at an inconvenient area where we confuse a lot of viewers that think it's kilometers per hour. So we're at 1 speed step out of 128 on the NCE Pro Cab. And we should be reaching the other sensor here, and it's 0.8 scale miles per hour at 1 speed step. I'll remove this so you can see for yourself the slow speed control of the locomotive. So 1 is pretty good. There's 2. I don't see a lot of lurching at all at these slow speeds, especially 0.8 scale miles an hour, and no lurching is good. There's 3, 4, and 5. So there's forward, and we'll just check a couple speed steps in reverse real quick just to make sure there's no difference in lurching, because there can be. Looks like it might be actually a little more lurchy in reverse. There's 1. There's 2, 3, 4, and 5. So there's your forward and reverse on the locomotive. You can also see walkway lights. There's one right there showing. So a nice detail with those. And as you can see, you should be able to barely make out the nose of the locomotive, so you can see the lighting features of these locomotives. The first one obviously being the headlight. You can see that the number boards are already lit and can be independently controlled. Ditch lights are F6. So you got your low and high mounted ditch lights there. You also see the ground light, the truck inspection light, or whatever you want to call it there, shining down on that truck in the first area there. There's also walkway lighting, as you can see, peeking through the stanchions on the front of the locomotive, just aft of the ditch lights. So that is all of the lighting features for the front of the locomotives. I'll show you the side and the rear. So as you can see, walkway lighting on the side of the locomotive allows the crews to navigate in the dark. There's the other walkway light on the other side of the locomotive. I reversed one for you. And speaking of reverse, there's the rear DPU light that's controllable as well. And that wraps up the lighting features on these locomotives. I've got a pull test here. We're going to give this a tug. And it looks like about 4 is what it's peaking out at. So, talking about 60 cars, 60 freight cars that this can pull by itself, and a full 120 plus car consist is very realistically possible with 2 of these locomotives. One other thing to note is that there's differences in horns, like you have a 3 chime on this Ferromex. So you hear that. Forgot to mention also the capacitance. The capacitor's in there for dirty track. As you see, it just cut off. And then I'll show you the difference there in the horns as I put on this NAFTA that has a 4 chime horn. We'll just hit the horn. So ScaleTrains not only does the road name specific detail, but they do sound files that correlate with the right horns. So there you have those horn differences. Well, that wraps up our review of the ScaleTrains AC4400CWs. Solid locomotive, nice detail. Love that ESU LOKSound. Nice lighting features and perfect color temperature on those bulbs, amongst many other features of these locomotives. With that said, we're going to leave you with a run-by of these locomotives together. So we'll see you next time right here on the channel. Take care.